Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of From the Dye Pots. So, as promised, I am coming to you with a dye experiment this morning, focusing on cherries. So I'm lucky enough to have a sister who is very supportive of all my crafty rabbit holes, and she also has a cherry tree in her backyard, which has an abundance of cherries this year. So never fear, I did not take away from the birds and the wildlife. There is still plenty of cherries left for everyone. So today I'm going to do two separate dye pots. I am going to do one with cherries, just the cherry fruit and the pits. The other dye pot is going to be with twigs, leaves, and stems. I should, from my research, get two different colors, but we'll see how it goes. I need to thoroughly wash everything to get rid of any little critters that may still be on the foliage. I am going to cut the cherries. The cherries are going to go into one dye pot, the foliage into the other dye pot. Yeah, so let's see what happens. Let's see what kind of colors we can get today onto our yarn. So I should say that I already have two skeins of a 75-25 merino nylon sport weight yarn that is right now in the mordant pot. I am mordanting with alum and cream of tartar to condition the wool and get it ready for receiving the dye. So what that does is it really allows the colors to bond to the yarn, to the wool, much better than if you don't use a mordant. I don't know what any of the natural mordant tendencies of cherry wood or cherry fruit or cherry pits would be. So rather be safe than sorry. Yeah. All right. So I am going to turn off the cameras while I clean off all the foliage and the fruit. I will get it ready for the dye pots, and then I'll meet you back here as we get ready to extract the dye from the raw materials. See you in a few moments. All right, so here we are in the process of getting ready to extract the dye out of the raw plant material. I have a few more of the cherries. So all I'm doing to the cherries, I am just using my cherry pitter to push the seeds out and then just dump the fruit right in there. So these cherries are actually a sour cherry. They are completely edible, and we do make jams and jellies and stuff out of them. But they are extremely tart. You can even feel it on your fingers, that astringent feeling, extremely tart. Not something that I would recommend eating off the tree. Not that it would hurt you, it would just, yeah, it wouldn't taste real good. So cherries are ready to go in this pot. In this pot, I have the leaves and stems, and all I've done is chop them into manageable size pieces. I really have no idea what either of these dye pots are going to do for us, but I guess we're going to find out, right? All right, so into each of the dye pots, I am going to add 3 liters of water and the plant material. That's it. That's all. All right, I am going to put the lids on both of these, and I am going to bring them up to a medium-low type of a simmer. As soon as it hits that simmer, I'll time it, let it go for about an hour, maybe 2 hours, and then turn the temperature off and let them come back down to room temperature. The way I prefer to dye yarns is always allowing things to go back down to that room temperature before I start moving the yarn around. I know it's superwash yarn and it shouldn't felt, but why take chances, right? So I'm going to put the lids on these. I'm going to get them cooking. My bare yarn is still on the stovetop. It is just about up to temperature, and then I will allow it to sit in its mordant bath, come back down to room temperature, and continue to sit and soak until it's ready to go into the dye pot. All right, there we are. I will be back when I am ready to strain, and we'll see what kind of color we pull out of the cherries and the pits and the twigs and the branches and the leaves. All right, see you in a bit. All right, everyone, so it is almost 4:30. So the dye baths have been going now for, let me see, about 5 hours. So they spent about 2.5 hours on heat, and then they have been cooling down since then. So the time has come to figure out what colors we have achieved. So let me grab my little containers here so we can take a really close look at what we've got once we have it separated. So just like I've done before, I am going to be straining off the dye color from the plant matter. And let's start out with the cherries themselves. So the cherry fruit with the cherry pits in it. All right, here we go. It does look pretty good. It does look like we got a decent amount of color out of the fruit and the pits. Just going to pour it through the strainer, collecting all of the bits and pieces. I want to get some of the cherries into the strainer because I wouldn't mind squishing those a little. So let me just grab my ladle, and I'm just going to squish out as much as possible out of that. Just squeezing out as much liquid as possible. Oh, that color is looking amazing. And all of this leftover matter is going to go straight into my compost bin. There's nothing in here except cherries and pits, and that will do just fine in the composter. Oh, we have cherry juice flying. All right, let me dump this, and then I will get the rest of the cherry matter. Sorry, I'll dump it out of sight of the screen. All right, let's pour the rest of those cherries into the strainer. One last one in there. Again, trying to get all the last bits of cherry juice out of there. All right, and I will get rid of that. All right, so let me grab one of my little glass jars, and I will show you the color that we're dealing with. So that is the color that we've managed to pull from the cherry fruit and pits. All right, so I'm going to put that back into the slow cooker. Let's get rid of all the rest of those cherry pits. And my goodness, I need triple sinks to do this. Let me see what I can do here. Oh my goodness, sorry for the banging. All right, and we are going to pour that cherry juice back in to the slow cooker. And the next step will be to put the yarn in there. But first, let's see what color we got from the cherry leaves and stems and branches / twigs. So I just want to rinse this out really well so that we don't have any dye contamination happening. There we go. All right, and the second slow cooker pot. Here we are. Open that bad boy up. And I have to say, compared to the dandelion cooking that I did last dye video, this was a much more pleasant experience. Even the greenery that I've cooked up has a fruity type smell to it. It is not pungent as the dandelion was. So that is something to be happy about, because that dandelion was nasty. All right, let me just rinse out the strainer here as well. I have a wee bit of cherry bits and pieces on there. All right, that should be pretty good. And that back in there. Are you ready? The moment of truth. And straight into there. All right. Not going to do too much pressing on that. I'm just going to dump it straight into the compost pile. There we are. A couple of leaves left in there. I will pull out. All right, so let me find my little jar and I can show you the color that we got from stems. So we have a yellowy, greeny, orangey color at this point. So as we saw last time though, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Just happy with that color. We did seem to get a lot of color out of the plant material, so that's a good thing. So back into the slow cooker pot it goes. All right. And that's that. I am going to be right back and I will take you along with me as I put the yarn into the dye baths. And then we will touch base again tomorrow to see how things are going. All right, so here we are back over at the other counter where I have the slow cookers ready to go. I'm just gonna come on into frame here. So we have the two slow cookers. We have the one with the cherry, the juice of the dye stock of the cherry fruit and pits is in this one. And the dye stock from the cherry leaves, twigs, and whatnot is in the round one. So I have off screen taken the wool, which has been sitting in mordant for the day. I have taken that and drained it off, and it is all ready to go. So let's start out with the cherry juice of the fruit and the pits. And here we go. So here is that merino nylon blend. It's a 75-25 merino nylon blend. Sorry, I hear the dog barking in the background. And yeah, as I said, it's been soaking in the mordant water for all day. So it should be very able to soak up a lot of this color. So we'll just drop that very carefully into the pot of dye. I'm going to pop that down just a little bit. All right. So both of these dye baths are going to be brought back up to temperature and then let to sit for about 12 hours. We will come back tomorrow and check on their progress. Maybe even do a little bit of modifying. We'll see. All right, so here is the secondary dye bath. And here is the second skein of yarn. So there we are. There it is. And we will just be submerging that as well into the dye bath. And using the wooden spoon, tamp that one down a little bit. So I'm going to bring these back up to temperature at about a medium temperature. We don't want to actually bring it up to a boil, just up to a nice hot, like I said before, about an 85 degrees. And then we will turn it off, let it sit, let it come back down to room temperature and sit there for a heck of a long time to soak up all of that great color. So quickly, before I leave you here for the evening, let me show you how, if anything, is already being picked up by the wool. Now remember though, we've had experiences with the purple. So that so far is the pink that we are getting from the cherry juice from the fruit. And now as I can give it a little squeeze, we can see that there is some color that goes away. So it's not as bright as you expect when you first pull it out. But that's pretty good amount of color already been taken up, even though it's only been in there for, you know, a couple of moments. So I have high hopes on this one. Again, we've had high hopes in the past, haven't we? All right, I'm going to pop the lid back on that one, push it to the side, and take a quick peek and see if anything is happening yet on the other side. So I'm going to reach right in there, and ooh, that's nice and bright already. Look at that. Definitely have some yellow going on there. This is almost like a lemon yellow color. I will be very curious to see what this does. All right, so back in it goes. We are, and we will tamp it down. By tamping it down, one of the things we're trying to do is get rid of some of the air pockets in there to give us better coverage. All right, and pop the lid back on there. And as I said, I will see you all in about, let me see, 12, maybe about 18 hours. We'll see how it goes. All right. It is 4:36 my time here, and it is Thursday, so I will see you tomorrow, which will be Friday, and we will check to see what has happened. All right? Talk to you tomorrow. Well, good morning, everyone. It is about 10 o'clock on Friday morning. The dye hots have been soaking all night, but I've decided I'd like to try something a little bit different. Dyeing like this is all just a big old science experiment. Lots of chemistry going on here. So I thought, although I am quite pleased with the colors that the dye pots are sitting at, I thought I would like to try to do some modifying. Now we're going to be modifying today with just baking soda, and by adding baking soda to the dye bath, it's actually going to change the pH of the water and can affect the color of the dye solution. And then I would like to do a little bit of well, you'll see. Hold on here. Don't know how to describe it. So I've gone ahead and started with the yarn that's being dyed with the plant matter. And that is what it's looking like so far. So a beautiful yellow coming out on that. I have gone ahead and siphoned off enough dye out of the pot that's left to fill this mason jar. To this, we're going to be adding some baking soda. This is just the plain baking soda that you get out of the supermarket. Then we are going to take and we are going to keep half the yarn in its dye bath, and we're going to put the rest into the baking soda treated dye and see if we can get some variant of color on those skeins. And we'll do the same thing to the dye bath that was done with the cherry fruit and pits. So let's ladle off some of that. So what I did off camera for the leaves and stems and whatnot, we will do on camera for the cherry, the fruit part of the experiment. And this will leave more than enough dye water in the pot for the yarn to still remain submerged. Oh my goodness, my pouring skills. All right, so I want it to be about the same amount as the other jar. And that looks pretty good. So the first thing we're going to do is add the baking soda and see if we're going to get any color shift in these dyes. So using about that much water, very scientific here, I tell you, I'm going to take about a tablespoon. Again, not very scientific since I am not using a measurement, just a normal tablespoon, and I'm going to pop that in there, give it a stir, and see what happens. All right, so that looks like it has brightened up that yellow just a smidge. So we'll see what that does. Not a huge shift, but we'll see what that does. Now let's try the more there, a little bit more there. Oh my goodness, are you seeing this? Are you seeing what's happening here? We've gone from pink to purple. Let's give that a good stir. Oh my goodness, would you look at that? Now we know that we don't always save purple dye when it comes onto the wool, but holy schmoly, look at that. Now the fuzzing is of course from the baking soda. It is the carbonate in the baking soda, but look at that color shift. That is absolutely sensational. So what we are going to do now is we are going to let these yarn skeins soak for the rest of the day, but we are going to change up the configuration just a smidge. So I am going to take the bottom of this skein of yarn out of the pot. I hope you can see this, and I'm going to submerge it directly into this new dye bath, and I'm going to let it sit just like that. And I'm going to do the same over here to the other side. Like so. Oh yeah, the color retention on this looks really good. But I'm going to pop it in there and see if we can get some brightening on that side. Oh, this is already shifting. Look at that. Woohoo! We have color shift. Welcome to natural dyeing. Oh my goodness, this is so much fun. Oh, and we definitely have a deepening of the color on that side. So I'm going to let this sit for another hour or so, and then we will come back and see our results. All right, thank you so much. Oh, I am so excited. I hope you're just as excited as I am. We'll see you in about an hour. All right, everyone, welcome back. The time is now about 1:35 Calgary time, and it is time to start rinsing the yarn. So the yarn has been hanging. I did end up having to move it a little bit and hook the yarn itself up and have it just dangling into the yarn bath. So we're going to start out with the yarn, oh my goodness, the words, I'm just so excited. The stems and leaves and stems, leaves, and sticks, the bits and pieces of branches. So this was the lighter yellow color. I hope you can see all this very well. This was the lighter yellow color that we were getting from the dye bath itself. And this much more vibrant yellow is what we got from modifying with the baking soda. So I am going to fill up my sink with just cool tap water. And we will see how much washes out of the skein. All right, pop it in there. Just plain water to start with. I don't know that my camera angle is going to allow you to see this. I'm going to pop around back and make sure that you're actually able to see what I'm doing. I'm going to move you a little bit closer. I do apologize for any jiggling. And make sure that you are in focus. There you are. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to make anybody seasick there. All right, so I am seeing a little bit of dye runoff, but not as much as could have been. All right, drain that out. So I do see a nice graduation of color happening here, from the lighter to the darker, and that makes me really excited. So I'm gonna fill up this sink one more time with plain water, give it another rinse. There is a little bit of plant matter in this, so once the skeins dry, I'll have to make sure the plant matter is removed from the wool. Alrighty, I am not seeing a whole lot being lost this time. Oh, I can't believe how vibrant this yellow has come out. So I'm going to give it a little bit of an agitation. Again, this is a super wash wool, so it can handle a little bit more rough treatment than if it was a non-super wash. Still want to be gentle with it to avoid any possible felting. Drain that one more time and then do a little bit with the wool wash just to help recondition that yarn. Here we go. And one more time with a little bit of my wool wash. And I just get this at my local yarn store. And as I said in other videos, there are people who have great success just using Dawn liquid dish detergent. The biggest thing, as I understand it, is making sure that the dish detergent is a neutral dish detergent, both in color and in pH. I know that they use that Dawn dish detergent when they're cleaning animals that get caught in oil slicks, so I'm going to assume that it is fairly safe. Now, this leftover dye, I am just going to dump straight down the drain. There is nothing in here that is going to harm the environment. Now, I have been working on some iron water and some wood ash water solution that I will be able to use as modifiers once the solutions have sat for, well, the wood ash about 2 weeks, the iron water may be a little bit more. So we'll have more experiments with modifying coming up in the future. So that is the final look at the yellow tones achieved before I hang this up to dry. So I'm going to pause you all. I am going to get this one hung up to dry, and then we will check out the pink and purple skein. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pink and purple skein. We'll see how much washes out of that one. All right, the moment of truth for the pink and purple skein. So just to recap, the pink and purple skein was the skein of yarn that was dyed with the fruit and pits of the cherries. And this is what we've gotten. So this is the pink color that was coming from just the cherry at the top of the skein. And then as I pull it out of the modified bath, which we modified with baking soda, we see this beautiful bluish purple tone. So I am very excited to see what we get after rinsing. All right, the moment of truth. Here we go. Into some cool tap water. Oh, cross your fingers. Please don't let all of this rinse out. We've had that happen already once, haven't we? All right. Well, dye retention looks pretty good. There is not a lot of runoff in the sink. That is pretty exciting. So let me pull this up. You can see that coming out. Now, it was wicking up the skein a bit, and that's why I ended up hanging the skeins instead of just allowing them to be at the same level between the two jars, between the jar and the dye bath. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed. Look at that. We've got 2 tones on here. Isn't that good? That was done with food, people. Yes, how exciting. All right, I'm going to drain the sink, and we will rinse it one more time and then do it with the bit of wool wash. Then I will be hanging these skeins to dry, And I will be back again in about 24 hours once they have been allowed to dry completely. Now today is not a very nice day out. I will hang the skeins to begin with outside, but it is threatening rain out there today, so I may have to move my skeins inside. But there's no problem with that. I can just hang them inside and get the fan going on them. And yeah, I will show you tomorrow the final product of the cherry dye bath experiment. So thank you so much for sticking around this long. For me, I'll see you tomorrow. For you, I'll see you in a few moments. All right, and welcome back. So it is Saturday morning. This is day 3 of the experiment. And I have to say that I am quite pleased with how this one turned out. Yeah, some surprises again. Mother Nature, she keeps throwing them at me. And I mean, I guess I could just go and read a whole bunch of books and not have to go through the whole process myself. But really, what's the fun in that? My intent is to learn and to discover and to have fun. So keep that in mind. I'm making this so foreboding, aren't I? So, as you know, we ended up, well, you know, because it was only seconds ago for you, but for me it was yesterday. We ended up with 2 skeins from the cherry dye experiments. One pot was fruit and pits, and the other pot was the foliage from the tree. And we ended up with 2 distinctly different colors. Well, 3 actually. So let's first address the sticks, the foliage from the tree. And we did a bit of a modification. So there is the skein. It's a little bit messy. I haven't re-skeined it yet. In fact, it's still a little bit damp, so I need to take it out of its skeined up form and hang it to dry all the rest of the way. As you can see, we did get some nice variance in color, and that was from adding the baking soda to modify the dye pot. So I'm going to take this out of its skein and show you. So there we can see the unmodified, so dyed and mordanted but not modified, compared to the modified. And I think there is a dramatic difference there. I am really, really astounded with the saturation and the depth of color we got from this yellow. And it is a true yellow. It's amazing. What an amazing color grab. Yeah, quite pleased with that one. So in contrast, we also did the fruit. Now, fruit and berries are notorious for being fugitive dyes, which means that they don't stick around. And cherry has proved to be a fugitive dye. So this is the final product of the cherry fruit dye. So the grayish pieces are the ones that were pink yesterday. That's how quickly this fades. So the grayish pieces are the ones that were pink yesterday. It does still have a slight bit of color. I can show you in a moment. But what's interesting is that the parts of the skein that were cherry dyed and then modified with the baking soda turned this sort of baby blue color, and it has not faded since yesterday. So it may be that I have found my path to baby blue through the use of cherry fruit as opposed to a pink or a red. So let me untwist this one to show you the dramatic difference between the modified and non-modified yarn and how that turned out. So that is a dramatic difference. But what I think is very interesting is when you put all this together, because all this came from the same plant, different parts of the plant, but the same plant. And I think that's pretty amazing. So to compare color capture overall, I unfortunately have run out of this yarn. These were my last 2 skeins. But I do have another yarn. It is a bulkier weight yarn. It too is an undyed natural state. And it is very similar in color to what we started out with the other 2. So you can see that there's a slight color difference in what used to be pink, a dramatic color difference in what is now blue, and you can see how truly vibrant these yellows are. So was this a success? I would say yes. I am going to keep a really close eye on this one and see if those blues start to fade as well. And you know what? Ultimately, if I'm not happy with the skein, it may just be over-dyed and thrown into another dye pot to see what will happen there. But until then, I bid you a fair adieu. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, hey, if you like watching these types of videos, if you've enjoyed my dyeing adventures up to this point and you'd like to see more of this, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I know that I also do my crochet chats on the channel, and that may be something that you're not interested in. So you know what? Just don't watch those ones. Just watch the ones that are dye related. And I do make a point of labeling them differently, so you will always know which ones are dye related. So with that, as always, I invite you to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time in my adventures from the dye pot. Bye now.